Yo, what is going on, everybody? My name is Fabian, or some of you may know me as the Dizzy Viper on Instagram. So today I'm gonna do a tutorial on how to make a Cornelius Dämmrich style render. Because a lot of people on Instagram have been asking me how I made it. So you can clearly see that the image is not as detailed as Cornelius Dämmrich's work, since I only spent a day maximum on one image and Dämmrich usually spends weeks, if not months, on an image. And that's insane, so props to Cornelius Dämmrich for the inspiration and the work he's been putting into his work. It's fantastic. So the most asked question was how I made the puddles. So that's also the first thing I'm gonna get into, and after that I'm gonna explain a little bit the lighting and the trash on the floor. So let's get into the tutorial. So the way I did the puddles was basically obviously a node setup with two different materials. One is the dry floor material and one is the wet floor material. Essentially that basically just means a material with very low index. They are both glossy materials, but the upper one, so the dry material, has a very low index of only 1.004, sorry. And whereas the wet material has a much higher index, which obviously then results in a glossier material. And what I did here is basically tell Octane to mix those two materials together by the amount of the puddles. So as you can see here, this is my puddle texture. It's a 4K puddle texture that I made myself. So basically here the white part triggers the dry material and the black part triggers the wet material. So I'm gonna recreate that whole node setup for you right in this video so you can follow it along. But first we're gonna paint a puddle texture. So let's get right into Photoshop right here and open up a new 4K map. You can also use 8K. I usually use 4K because most of my maps are 4 or 8K sometimes, but my puddle textures usually are only 4K. So we're gonna create a new white solid on here, just like that. And now we're gonna use a black brush. So I usually use a watercolor brush, and I will leave a link to that in the description down below. Just because they look like puddles if you put them in the right way into Octane. It looks awesome. So here are my watercolors now, and I'm just gonna use different ones like this one. Maybe make sure to make it a little small, like not like huge. So yeah, about 1,000 should be right. 1,000 pixels, yeah. And just start painting like this, just random, and make sure to use different puddles, just because it would look a little weird if all the puddles had the same shapes. So that's it for the puddles. And what I also like to do sometimes is use cracks. So basically, I think that's actually shattered glass textures, if I'm not wrong. They should be, oh no, it's basically broken wall. So I sometimes use these two. These look awesome because like you have cracks inside your street and then they are filled with water. That just looks, I think that looks pretty cool. So this one can be a little bigger, like 4K maybe, like that. Let's do it like this. And we should be done with our puddle texture. So let's just export this right now. I'm just gonna put it on my desktop because it's only for this tutorial. Tutorial puddle map. And this just shows how simple it is to actually make a puddle map. Because I usually, before I came up with the idea to make them myself, I had to Google a lot on Google Images to find good puddle textures, which wasn't really good, I think. So I started making them myself. And I also do recommend you do as well. So let's now open a new project. So let's just start with a plane and create a new Octane material. So I usually just go straight into the node editor and just do everything from scratch in there. So the first thing you want to do, we're now going to create the dry material. And I'm going to use some polygon textures for that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create an image texture like this and go into roads, and we're gonna be using the asphalt damaged 2 lanes tree. So here we're gonna put in our color map and plug that right into our diffuse channel. Also make sure to set the Octane material node to glossy. So now just put in all the rest of the channels like this, roughness, and put obviously the gloss texture in it. And as polygon usually doesn't come with bump maps, I usually use the same gloss map as bump map, but with a higher brightness. So basically I put in a color correction and set that brightness to 2. That way the texture gets brighter and resembles a little bit more detail. And last but not least, the normal map. So I'll just plug that in here, like this. Now we're gonna have to set the index to 1.004. I just found that something between 1.003 and 1.005 is usually the best setting for it. Obviously you can also set it a little higher if you want the rest of the street being also a little bit wet. So now we have our dry material. Next up we're going to create our glossy material. So we're going to create a new material, set it to glossy of course, and now we have to set the index a little higher. I like to go for 1.21. Now we're gonna create another image texture, which again is our color map, and we're gonna plug that into our diffuse map and create another image texture that is again our bump map, so our glossy map, like this, and just copy the color correction of that node. Don't plug this into something yet, because we need to first create our image texture for the puddles. So let's create another image texture and put our puddle map into that. And now to combine these, we use a mix node and just put both our textures in there. And now this whole mix node channel goes straight into our bump map. And the mix amount of this node should be at around 0.03, like this. Now let's create our mix material, which combines both our materials that we just created. And we're gonna mix these materials by the amount of our puddle map. So we're gonna create another image texture and plug it straight into the amount of our mix material and put the puddle map in there again. So now if the puddles show up too small or something like that, you can just use transform nodes to trigger the size of the puddles. So basically you have to make a transform node that triggers these two textures right here, which are our puddle maps. Just make sure that the transform node always triggers both of them, because both of these textures have always to be the same size. So let's just put this texture onto our plane right now and see what it looks like. So as you can see, I just created a little HDRI map just to show the puddles. So now as you can see, the puddles are slightly rough, so they are not really glossy, they're a little rough. So we're just gonna change that really quick inside the node editor. And this is how you do it. So basically our image texture has a brightness of 2 down here in the puddle section, which triggers the puddles to be a little bumpy. As you can see, if we go straight into that, as you can see right here, the puddles are a little bumpy. So to fix that, just decrease the brightness of our color correction of our bump map inside the puddles section. So as you can see, as we decrease the brightness, the puddles get a lot smoother. And now you have pretty realistic puddles. Yeah, so that's how you create puddles. And the next part is how to create the lighting in my scene. Now I'm not going to recreate the whole lighting, but I'm going to explain how I did it, and I hope that helps you. If you have any questions, just ask in the comments down below and I will try to answer them at my best. So let me just open my Octane viewport right here so we can actually see what we're doing. So since the speed is quite slow, if I have my fog volume turned on, I turned it off for you now so we can actually see a bit faster what we're doing. So as you can see in my object list right here, I have quite a bit of Octane area lights. One is the one coming from the bottom of the subway entrance, but as you can see in the image, there are no area lights elsewhere. That's because I made them invisible for the camera. Now I know the lighting doesn't make much sense if there is light that has no source, but it actually triggers a lot of detail in my scene. So if I make them visible right now, so we have all these area lights, and if I now turn the camera visibility on, you will see where my area lights are. So basically we have one here, one here, one here, one here, and one coming from the bottom. And a huge one in the back right here, but it's not that bright, but I put it there because the light of my lamppost didn't really cast the source of light that I wanted. So I put just a bigger area light right here to make these cars a little more visible, as well as this area light right here, and this one, which basically casts this orangey kind of look. And the reason I put these area lights where they are is this one right here, if I go back into my camera, this area light right here is that one, which casts these details to appear right here. This one casts these details to appear. And as you can see, I put the area light right here where it is, just above the car light. And that's because that makes it not that noticeable that there is no source of light coming from nowhere. So it looks like the source of light is the light of the car, which isn't the case. And the other one, which is this one right here and this one right here. These two area lights cast the silhouettes around my Astronaut, which is, by the way, the original Astronaut from Cornelius Dämmrich 52 Hz, which you can buy in his store. I will leave a link to it in the description down below. So yeah, that's basically those two lights, and that little small one right here is just to make visible some more detail on that on my Astronaut. As you can see, if I turn off that small light down there, a lot of detail gets lost on the Astronaut, whereas if I turn it on, a little bit more of the cables in here get visible. So obviously, since you don't want all these lights to be visible but all affect the scene, you can just go into your area light tag and turn the camera visibility off. Now the camera doesn't see our lights, but they are actually affecting the atmosphere and the environment. And last but not least, the trash on the floor. That's actually pretty simple. It's a polygon texture called, let me just see, I'm not sure what, I think it's called Street Rubbish or something. Rubbish Paper 001, which basically is an 8K or 4K map of different rubbish pieces that you can just put on the floor, and it works great. And some people have also been asking me how I made the atmosphere in here, so basically the fog. And the way I did that is just create a big fog volume, put a low density on it, and make it a little dark, a little light gray, not white. So that way it looks like it was raining before or it's raining right now, depending on what you want to do. So this was the tutorial on how I made this Cornelius Dämmrich style image. If you have any more questions, just leave them in the comment section down below and I will try to answer them as well as possible. So thank you for watching and have a nice day.